The cabin lights dimmed slowly, casting a soft amber glow over the rows of seats as the plane glided smoothly over the vast, black stretch of the Atlantic Ocean. Outside the windows, nothing could be seen but darkness, an endless void broken only by the occasional flicker of distant lightning far below the clouds. Inside, the steady hum of the engines created a lullaby that had coaxed most passengers into sleep. Blankets were tucked under chins, tray tables locked upright, headphones snug over ears. It was one of those long overnight flights where time seemed suspended, where the world outside shrank to a narrow aisle in recycled air. In row 10, by the window, a young woman slept with her forehead resting gently against the glass. Her breathing was slow and even, her expression calm. She wore faded jeans and a simple gray sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. To anyone passing by, she looked completely ordinary, just another tired traveler on her way home or toward a new beginning. No one on that plane could have guessed the weight she carried in silence. No one could have known the memories she worked so hard to keep buried, or the reason she always chose window seats, or why she avoided looking at aircraft cockpits whenever she boarded a flight. To the world, she was anonymous, and for years that anonymity had felt like safety. The calm shattered without warning. A sharp chime echoed to the cabin, followed by the sudden crackle of the intercom. The captain's voice came through, strained and urgent, cutting through the gentle drone of the engines. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a medical emergency. Our co-pilot has collapsed. We need assistance immediately. If there's anyone on board with flight experience, combat pilots, commercial pilots, please make yourself known to the cabin crew." For a heartbeat, the plane seemed to freeze. Then panic rippled through the cabin like a wave. Seats creaked as people sat upright. Blankets were flung aside. Headphones were yanked off. Wide eyes darted back and forth, silently asking the same terrifying question. Is this really happening? A woman near the aisle clasped her hands together and whispered a prayer under her breath. A man further back let out a shaky laugh that quickly turned into silence. Somewhere, a baby began to cry, sensing the sudden tension in the air. The flight attendants moved quickly but carefully, their training evident even as worry flickered across their faces. In row 10, the sleeping woman stirred. At first, the words didn't register. They floated through her half-dreaming mind, tangled with fragments of other sounds. Radio chatter, warning alarms, voices calling out her name from another life. She blinked, confused, her heart already beginning to pound for reasons she didn't yet understand. Medical emergency. Co-pilot collapsed. Her breath caught. Slowly, fully awake now, she sat up. Around her, the cabin buzzed with anxious murmurs. She felt a familiar tightening in her chest, the instinctive urge to stay still, to stay invisible. For years, she had trained herself to do exactly that, to be just another face in the crowd, another passenger, another civilian. But as the captain's words replayed in her mind, something else stirred, something she thought she had locked away forever. She closed her eyes briefly, fingers gripping the armrest. Images surged unbidden. Endless blue skies, roaring engines vibrating through her bones, desert sun glaring off metal wings. The smell of fuel, the crackle of a radio. A voice, her wingman's voice, laughing confident, alive. Her throat tightened. Not again, she thought. I can't. And yet, she could already feel her body responding, muscle memory awakening before her mind could fully catch up. Her pulse steadied. Her breathing slowed. Training, drilled into her over countless hours, began to surface like something that had only been sleeping. Not gone. The plane jolted slightly, a mild pocket of turbulence, but enough to trigger a fresh wave of gasps. That was when she unbuckled her seatbelt. The soft click sounded far louder to her than it should have. A man across the aisle glanced at her, startled as she stood. For a moment, she hesitated, every instinct screaming at her to sit back down, to let someone else step forward. But no one else was standing. The aisle stretched ahead of her, leading toward the front of the plane, and toward everything she had tried to leave behind. She took a step, then another. "I can help," she said softly, her voice calm but steady. Nearby conversations died instantly. Heads turned. A flight attendant, her face pale but professional, hurried over. "Ma'am," the attendant said, lowering her voice, "do you have any flying experience?" The woman lifted her gaze and met the attendant's eyes. There was no bravado there, no need to prove anything, just quiet certainty. "Yes," she replied, "combat experience." A hush fell over the cabin. Whispers spread like wildfire. Did she say combat? She doesn't look like a pilot. Is this real? The flight attendant blinked, clearly startled, then nodded sharply. "Please, come with me." As they moved forward, the woman felt hundreds of eyes on her back. She ignored them, focusing instead on placing one foot in front of the other. Her palms were damp, but her hands did not shake. When the cockpit door opened, the familiar scent hit her like a physical blow. Metal electronics, recycled air. For a split second, she froze in the doorway. The memories came rushing in, stronger now. Missions flown under hostile skies. Split-second decisions that meant life or death. And the last mission, the one she never talked about, the one where her wingman didn't make it back. She swallowed hard. Inside the cockpit, the captain sat slumped in his seat, pale and sweating, one hand gripping the armrest. Another crew member was tending to the unconscious co-pilot on the floor. The instruments glowed softly, steady and waiting. The captain looked up, eyes tired but sharp. When he saw her, something like relief washed over his face. "Thank God," he said hoarsely. "What's your background?" She stepped fully inside, the door closing behind her with a muted thud that felt final. "Air Force," she answered. "Former lieutenant." The captain nodded, already assessing, already trusting. "You're in charge, Lieutenant." The word hit her harder than she expected. Lieutenant. No one had called her that in years. Her heart skipped, then steadied. She moved to the seat, sliding into it with a familiarity that surprised even her. Her hands found controls, fingers resting where they had rested 1,000 times before. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance as the plane nudged into rougher air. Inside the cabin, panic grew louder. Children cried. Someone shouted. The flight attendants did their best to reassure passengers, but fear was contagious. In the cockpit, however, her voice was calm, controlled, unwavering. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said into the intercom, "this is your acting pilot speaking. Please remain seated and stay calm. We are aware of the situation, and we are going to land safely." As she spoke, storm clouds loomed ahead, lightning flashing across the wings like jagged veins of light. She adjusted the controls, her movements precise, her mind focused. For the next 40 minutes, the world narrowed to instruments, instincts, and the steady rhythm of her own breathing. And she did not look back. The storm wrapped around the aircraft like a living thing. Clouds towered ahead, thick and dark, churning with restless energy. Lightning cracked across the sky, briefly illuminating the wings in stark white flashes before plunging them back into shadow. The plane shuddered as turbulence tossed it from side to side, and somewhere in the cabin, a scream broke free before dissolving into sobs. Inside the cockpit, the woman barely noticed. Her world had narrowed to the glowing instruments before her, the subtle resistance of the controls beneath her hands, and the steady rise and fall of her breath. Fear was there. She could feel it pulsing beneath her ribs, but it no longer ruled her. Years of training, long buried beneath grief and guilt, surged back with astonishing clarity. Every lesson, every drill, every emergency simulation rose to the surface as if no time had passed at all. The captain watched her closely, relief deepening with every confident adjustment she made. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his breathing slowly evened out as he realized the aircraft was in capable hands. "You're doing great," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. She didn't respond, her focus absolute. Her eyes flicked between the altimeter, airspeed, and horizon indicator. The storm battered the plane, but she countered each jolt with calm precision, guiding the aircraft through the darkness as though she were carving a path through chaos itself. In the cabin, the tension was unbearable. Passengers clutched armrests until their knuckles turned white. A mother pressed her child's head against her chest, whispering soothing words she barely believed herself. A man stared at the seat back in front of him, lips moving silently as he prayed. The flight attendants moved through the aisle, voices steady, smiles strained, doing everything they could to hold a fragile calm together. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. At one point, a violent pocket of turbulence slammed the plane downward, eliciting a chorus of screams. In the cockpit, alarms chimed briefly before falling silent again as the woman corrected their course. "Easy," she murmured under her breath, as if speaking to a skittish animal. "I've got you." The word surprised her. She realized she wasn't just talking to the aircraft. She was talking to herself. Memories tried to intrude again. The flash of an explosion. A final radio call cut short. The crushing silence that followed. For years, those moments had haunted her, convincing her she had no right to sit in a cockpit ever again. Her jaw tightened. "Not today," she whispered. Gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, the turbulence eased. The storm began to thin, the clouds breaking apart as the aircraft descended. Then, through the windshield, she saw it. Two parallel lines of light cutting through the darkness. The runway. Her chest tightened, emotion rising unexpectedly in her throat. She swallowed hard, forcing her focus back where it belonged. "Come on," she breathed. "One last landing." The captain leaned forward slightly, eyes fixed on the lights ahead. "You've got this." The aircraft aligned with the runway, descending steadily now. The wind fought them, trying to push them off course, but she held firm, adjusting, correcting, trusting her instincts. The ground rushed up to meet them. Then impact. The wheels hit the runway with a heavy jolt that rattled the cabin, followed by a smooth, controlled roll as the plane slowed. For a fraction of a second, there was stunned silence. Then the cabin erupted. Cheers burst forth, loud and unrestrained. Applause thundered through the aisle. People laughed and cried at the same time, strangers grabbing each other in disbelief and relief. A flight attendant sank into an empty seat, tears streaming down her face as she pressed a hand to her mouth. In the cockpit, the woman exhaled a long, trembling breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her hands rested on the controls, finally still. "We're down," the captain said softly, his voice thick with emotion. She nodded, unable to speak just yet. When the plane came to a complete stop and the engines powered down, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. The danger had passed. Lives had been saved. When the doors opened, something unexpected happened. Instead of rushing to exit, passengers stood in the aisle. One by one, they waited, forming a quiet line. As the woman stepped out of the cockpit, unsure and exhausted, they began to thank her. Hands reached out to shake hers. Voices choked with emotion told her she was a hero. Some simply nodded, eyes shining with gratitude, unable to find the words. She smiled faintly, though tears brimmed in her eyes. For the first time in years, something inside her shifted. The heavy weight she had carried, the guilt, the doubt, the belief that her best days were behind her, began to lift. A small tug at her sleeve made her look down. A little boy stood there, eyes wide with awe. "Miss," he asked, "were you scared?" She knelt down to his level, meeting his gaze. She thought for a moment, then smiled warmly. "Yes," she said gently. "I was scared. But sometimes being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do it anyway because other people need you." The boy's face lit up. "I want to be brave like you." Her chest tightened, emotion flooding through her in a way that hurt and healed all at once. "You already are," she told him softly. Later that night, as she finally walked out of the airport and into the cool night air, she paused. The sky above was clear now, calm and vast. She took a deep breath, feeling lighter than she had in years. She realized then that she hadn't just saved a plane full of strangers. She had saved herself. Kindness, courage, and compassion have a way of waking us up. Even when we believe we've left our best days behind, a single act of bravery can inspire hundreds of hearts and reignite the light we thought we'd lost forever.